Jesus?
A great teacher. No more the Son of God, however, than
I am.
you are. Exactly. A great teacher, yes.
It makes a good story. Humans need a hero. They need sports heroes. They need political heroes, although there's not many. They need technology and science heroes, but they also need an icon that they can look up to and worship, because they don't go within.
The archetype of the Jesus, the Savior, is still very powerful on the planet. And yet that slowly is being replaced by people finding it within themselves instead of needing it to be out there as a figure.
In the early days of the Catholic Church, there was, how would you say, a basic understanding that Jesus would appeal to the masses because he was a human, and that he would be such a fine example. It took them well over 500 years to even decide amongst themselves how he would be presented to the public. In your modern terms, would be how his PR campaign would be handled. So they developed this very interesting but not necessarily accurate story of Jesus, which wasn't even his real name to begin with. It was, when he walked on earth, it was Yeshua ben Joseph. They need someone to look to and to worship, and their leaders, even religious leaders, who have no idea of what the I am principle is about, who have no idea that the God is already within. They encourage their groups to worship some far-off Jesus, because it is a wonderful way of perhaps what you would call anesthetizing them a bit, take their mind off their daily pain, but it's also a wonderful way of controlling. So whether it is the Christian church, whether it is so many of the other religions, they create these icons, but the icons are out there somewhere, and they're generally hardly based in reality.
For those of you who are, extremely light, guess what? You've had extremely dark lifetimes. You've probably done some extremely dastardly deeds. So that's difficult. A part of your quote-unquote New Age movement wants to be all light and all happy, and we'll tell you that is not what this lifetime is about, because there are prejudices there. All right? And the idea here is that you release all of that prejudice, all of that judgment against the dark, because you cannot have one without the other.
Those who are biased to the light only are basically imbalanced, and they're going to have to then, sooner or later, experience their dark part, which they're deathly afraid of. They're afraid of that dark part within. Why do they label it dark? Why do they think it's evil? Is just another aspect of them.
One doesn't want to be in the light by being in the denial of one's shadow.
The idea, remember, is that growth is the product of integration of all that you are, not the exclusion of anything. It is the allowance that everything is valid, the balancing of everything is valid. That's why the more evolved you become, you actually become more aware of more dark, because you're willing to integrate it all and balance it all within you.
And there are some who want to, step into that space and say, oh, I'm nothing but light. I haven't had any dark lifetimes. And we will tell you it is precisely the opposite. Because usually it's not until you have mastered the dark or some aspect of the dark that you are given abilities and to work in the light as well.
Momentum to snap into the light is actually gathered by exploring the darkness as deeply as you can.
Cryon says on the other side of the veil, it is much, much different. We don't have the minds we do now. We don't have the logic we do now. And this is like a play. This is, Cryon says, is very much like a play. When the guy, when the curtain closes and the guy with the knife who has been murdered by the other guy, the curtain closes, they all get up and go have a party. There's no animosity, they don't care, they don't carry a vendetta. And so when we're on the other side of the veil, it's like we regroup and come back in.
So there are really no victims or villains?
There are no victims and villains. And this, of course, will fly in the face of every single teaching that anybody's ever heard in this nation. There is also no heaven and hell. This is a very interesting theme, and I'm glad you asked that, because when I'm in Israel, which I have been numbers of times, especially in the heart of it, in Jerusalem, these questions are asked. It's inconceivable that Hitler is not in hell. There is a line you cross. That guy has got to be being punished right now. According to my channeling, the men and women I work with who channel, that is not the case. He came and he did something. He went to the dark side, if you want to call it, and a whole bunch of people went with him. And he had the choice, and so did they. And he created something that we just find abhorrent and just awful. And yet, when the curtain closed, he got up and everybody gave him a party.
That being who was Hitler agreed to be of service to that collective, to that group, through that genetic line. And that's a hard one for humans to see, all right? That's a very hard thing for them to begin to forgive. And then that goes back to the veil, of why the veil is placed there, here, so that you don't remember everything.
Everybody who was what you would call adversely or tragically affected by the era of Hitler and by Hitler himself was there because they created together, they co-created that reality that was, from a human perspective, certainly a very tragic and sad and awful time in your history. But Hitler was the catalyst for growth in many people who participated in that Holocaust, and it really was a Holocaust in human terms. And so good did come out of that.
The fact that such a being existed in your reality is part and parcel a reflection of what your reality allows, and thus it is a service to you to show you this is what you support. Is this what you want to continue to support, or do you want to change this in the future? So it can be used as a service in that way. So yes, on a soul level, it can be looked at as a service, even though on the human level, it may only be seen as an atrocity.
We do not teach or believe that you have to repay past debts, if you will. And that's what many people see karma being. Like your past misdeeds from this lifetime or another lifetime, you got to make up for those. And that's, in our view, nonsense. If you want us to be more blunt about it, it's bullshit.
Discussing what you would call the concept of sin has been done many times. And you will know that I will say this, and it is controversial to almost all that you have been taught. There is no such thing. Sin has been and is created by human beings. Wishing then to assign something to it, it is often then control. It is often then punishment. For you will have some guru tell you what is appropriate and inappropriate to God.
You are not in any way shackled by the past. Past of this life, past of many lifetimes ago. And so, there's nothing to repay.
And what you might say to that is that there must be inappropriate behavior. When you see those who are in prison for certain acts that are atrocious, when you see those who take lives, you would say, surely that is inappropriate. And I will say to you, that is exactly what it is in the scheme of the balance that you have chosen to create as your culture. But spiritually, it follows a pattern where those who have done it by free choice. And when they get to the other side of the veil, there is no judgment. Therefore, sin, by the very nature of its definition, does not exist as sin. There are no sins, that is to say, things that you do, which then you will be punished for.
All your power is right now, so it doesn't matter what's happened in the past. All that matters is where you want to go from here, and you have all the power to go wherever you want from here. Right here and now, you have that power.